Learn from experience as we interview David Dodge, a real estate investor, author, and coach who's done over 1,000 deals. I'm gonna let everybody know. I'm getting started here. Um, good. What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. Hope you're all doing fantastic today. Yes, sir. We're gonna get started here in a second. We're sitting down with a gentleman today that has done over 1,000 deals, 1,000 real estate deals. And we're big on saying that we really do this business. We really do this business. But man, this guy really does this business. 1,000 deals? Whoa. I don't know about you guys, but I am not anywhere close to 1,000 deals yet. Now, keep in mind, I've only been in the business here for about a year, a solid year. But for somebody to be able to do 1,000 deals is incredible, even in a 10-year time frame, in my opinion. And I say that as somebody that started with no deals. I had no deals and no money, no connections, nothing. Kyle says you're doing absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to turn off the AC so it makes less noise. I hear that it's going, and we will get started here. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help David get on, and we will get started here in a second. Let's go. Man, is life amazing or what? Life is amazing. It is what it should be. Oh, life is amazing. It is what it should be, ladies and gentlemen. Life is amazing. It is what it should be. Is what it should be. All right? I want everybody in here getting paid. I want everybody in here rich. I want everybody in here confident. I want everybody in here strong. I want everybody in here to win. And I want you all to win in a way where you feel you are winning. Not where you feel you're pleasing your parents or doing what they want you to do or being a good this or that, but you really waking up in the morning and saying, damn, I can't believe it. I'm really living my dream life. This is real life. That's what I want everybody to feel. That's what I want everybody to feel. And if there's anything I can do to help you guys make that happen, you let us know, because this is the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. There is no other more valuable community than this one. And if you have not already, please consider inviting somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us. Send them that link. Send them to reirev.com. We are currently in the process of getting our website completely redone. It's going to be huge. It is going to take some time, but by the time you're seeing this video replay, it will be up. It will be up. So definitely go check us out, reirev.com or reirevolution.net. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get ourselves ready today to sit down with an individual that has done over 1,000 real estate deals. Real deals. This is somebody who's done over 1,000 deals. Now, I know many of us in the community are struggling to get to our first deal, and we give everybody the resources that they need so that they can be successful for absolutely free. There is no reason that you cannot be successful in this industry. You have all of the connections that you need, the people, the resources, the data, the information. People will answer your questions, all the support. At this point, it's truly up to you. Truly up to you. And then once you do it, invite somebody else you think could do it too, and let's do it together. We're going to do it. We really do this business. I had two people come up today on the stage that I've broken bread with in this community alone. We really do this business, ladies and gentlemen. From anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where I'm at. We really do this business. All right. In the meantime, while we get ready here, David is getting his account together. Invite somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us for this conversation. We're going to sit down with an individual that's done over 1,000 deals. I'm going to write that in the chat for everybody to see. Let us know in the side chat, where is everybody at? Today on the Coffee with Closer show, we talked about where we were at, where we're doing business, and I saw some people were connecting, some new faces. You never know what types of people are in the audience here. Could be private money, could be a potential buyer, could be a potential partner. You wouldn't know unless you reach out and let people know what you're trying to accomplish. And when you see people that are trying to accomplish the same thing, reach out to them and let them know that you're trying to accomplish the same thing as well. Let's squat up. We got Carmela in Charlotte, North Carolina. We got David in the audience here trying to connect. David, welcome. We're gonna bring you up. I'm gonna click invite to speak. All you'll do is invite. Boom, you're up. How's it going, David?
Hey guys, what's up? What's up? Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Let me see if I can get my camera to work here, guys. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties here today. I apologize.
No worries, no worries. I'm grateful for you to be in proximity with us and come to join us today. Excited.
Yeah, buddy, I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to be here. Let's see if I
Fantastic.
can't get this never used Discord before. This is cool. This is all
Well,
new to me, guys.
Discord's by far my favorite social media platform in the game.
Yeah,
The
this is pretty it sounds looks like it's got all kinds of cool bells and whistles over here.
oh yeah, you
Okay,
can
well,
you can pretty much
why
do
is it
anything.
doing
Calls,
this?
video calls, screen sharing, presentations. It's all here.
Where do I go to adjust the camera here?
So on that camera button, if you have already selected it, it should be highlighted in white. There should be a down arrow, an arrow pointing down, and then you can select
Oh, I
which
see it.
camera, and you can change your video background there.
Uh, it's not showing. Oh, there it goes. Oh,
There
there
it
it is. Look at
is.
that.
Boom.
All right, cool guys. All right, I'm learning here, so I apologize.
All good.
You get there we go. All right. Well, I can't use my good camera. It's not letting me, but we'll just use this camera. No problem at all.
That's a great camera.
No problem at all. Well, I got a $7,000 camera that I'd like to use, but it's not letting me connect to it because it's just not set up with all the bells and whistles here. But that's okay, guys. All good. Happy to be here, John. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate your flexibility and your willingness to come. And I'm excited to chop it up with you and learn a little bit more about who you are, what has gotten you to where you're at now. I mean, you're in what looks like to be a beautiful office. I'm assuming this is something that you probably designed yourself. Is that right?
Hold on a sec, John. I'm sorry, man. Let me get rid of these. Difficulties are always fun.
All good. All
Honestly,
good. Can you hear me?
let's see. Input device. We're going to use that. Output device. Mac speakers. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
All right, we're good, guys. I'm gonna quit touching stuff and just be here, be present.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to join us, David. I know that you were very flexible with your schedule and making this work, and I appreciate, your willingness to come and join us. And I'm excited. I'm eager to learn about what has happened, in your journey to take you from doing your first deal to doing over 1,000 deals. And
Yeah.
um, obviously, you're in a beautiful office. I'm sure you probably designed this space yourself, did you not?
Yeah, I did. It's just it's an old conference room that we had that wasn't being used, so I just kind of turned it into a little studio for recording, and I got all types of cool bells and whistles in here, but of course, half of them aren't working right now, but that's all right. We don't need all that stuff to talk about real estate investing, guys. No big deal at all. I'm happy to be here, John. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, um, let's get started then. We're seeing a couple people come through. Let's start with who is David Dodge?
Yeah, guys, absolutely. So I got about 50 minutes and then I got to hit the road. So I'm going to try to keep my question or my answers short for you guys. I am a real estate investor in the Midwest. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm 39 years old. I've been buying and selling real estate since I was 20. Now, the caveat there, or the catch there, or however you want to look at it, is all through my 20s, I was a passive investor, meaning I had jobs and businesses and different things that I was doing. And real estate was secondary. It was just basically I was buying a rental or two a year for the first 10 years. So all through my 20s. When I turned 30, I decided, you know what, I want to go full time in real estate. I don't want to be a passive investor anymore. I want to be a full time investor. So for the last 9 years, I haven't had any jobs or any other businesses for the most part. I've been a full time real estate investor, and actively buying and selling properties is um, my number one, hobby, career, job, strategy, you name it. So in the first 10 years, I only did 12 deals, basically a deal a year. And in the last 9 years, which would give me a total of 19 years, I'll call it about 20. I've done about 1,000. I think I'm like truly at like 950 or 960. So I just kind of rounded up to about 1,000, which is, pretty similar. Um, and, the big difference there, John, between the first 10 years and the second 9 years um, was I learned about motivated sellers. I learned that there were sellers out there that would value convenience and speed over capital. Right now, no sellers typically giving houses away, although I have had houses given to me before, but they were houses I didn't want for the most part. Houses, apartment buildings, commercial units, raw land. I mean, you name it, I bought and sold it or own it at this point. But again, the main difference between me in my first 10 years and me in my second 10 basically was I learned about motivated sellers. I learned that there's people out there that value convenience and speed more than they do trying to get the absolute most for their property. And that's really I was just on another coaching call with about 40 of my students, and our topic on today's call was talking to sellers. And I said, well, before we even jump into this topic, we need to understand a couple things. Number one, sellers typically have, two different types of motivation. They either have a motivation to get the most money they can, and I don't want nothing to do with those sellers. Unless it's a big property and I can be the listing agent on it, then sure. Right? Or they have a motivation to encompass speed and convenience. And those are the type of sellers that I want to work with. The people that, are essentially going to value the convenience and the speed that us as investors, I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about everybody on this call and anybody that watches the replay. We're real estate investors, guys. What do we have at the end of the day? At the end of the day, all we have is the ability to offer somebody convenience. It's either that, we have a lot of money and we can go overpay for properties, and then we can scratch the motivation of capital. I'm not interested in scratching that motivation. I'm interested in getting properties at deep, deep, deep discounts. And the way in which we do that is we offer convenience to sellers. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. I'm a landlord, I'm a wholesaler, I'm a fix and flipper, I'm a syndicator, kind of starting to do a little bit of that, and I'm a coach. Right now, I got about 250 students.
That is incredible. So you've already got an established community. People are already listening to you. You're saying you're a syndicator, so I'm sure you're kind of leveraging that community to present opportunities for investments to the investors that you work with. And you are in the position now that I'd like to find myself in probably the next 2, 3 years.
Awesome. Well, yeah, just keep plugging away. You'll get there. You already got a great community, it looks like here. Sorry I was late and had some difficulties getting in, but I see all types of stuff going on my screen here, and it looks like you got all the stuff that, one would need for different channels and chats and resources and all that type of stuff here to provide to your community. So that's amazing. That's awesome. Good stuff.
I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be a part of the community. It's incredible to see, what we've been able to accomplish. Two people on the morning call today came up, and we're just grateful because they both done deals with me, and I'm grateful to have been able to do deals with them, and just to really see, that we're people that genuinely do this business, and we really do this is refreshing to see, especially in the industry, because a lot of it is kind of information driven, and people make their business selling information more important than doing the business of real estate. And I think that's what separates us from the majority, is that we genuinely do this business. We love real estate, and we're doing everything we can to own more of it at the end of the day.
Yep. I hear that, man. Love owning. I mean, that's really where the majority of my wealth has come from, is owning real estate. Fixing and flipping properties is great. You get big chunks coming in the door. Wholesaling's great for people that want to get started. I mean, I still do some wholesaling, but I've pivoted more into doing more wholetailing because you can make 2 to 3 times. Now, in order to wholesale, you got to typically close on the property. You don't have to, but you typically do. Some updates might even need to be made, and you need to have financing in place to be able to hold it for a month or 2 or 3 before you resell it, right? But yeah, all these are great strategies. Even creative financing, subject to all that type of stuff. It's great strategies. But the majority of my wealth has come from buying and holding and letting the market appreciate over time, paying those properties down, utilizing the tax advantages that you get from owning the real estate, paying less taxes, so on and so forth. So as of today, I own about $13 million worth of real estate.
Incredible. Where did you get started?
Most of what I do here is in Missouri. So got started in college buying rentals, like I said, for the first 10 years. And, I was buying about a rental a year, which was slow. Now I may buy 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 or 8 even in a month. Now, I don't hold every rental that I buy. Sometimes we'll hold them for, hold them long term or forever, I should say. Sometimes we'll hold them for 6 months. Sometimes we'll hold them for 12 months. Sometimes we'll hold them for 18 months. Other properties, I mean, I got a few in my portfolio that I've owned for, 9, 10, 11 years. So it just kind of depends. Nicer ones and nicer neighborhoods, I'm definitely more interested in holding for the longer term. If we're buying in, C minus or D class neighborhoods, then, 1 to 2, 3 years tops typically is kind of my hold period. Um, and then cash out and then reinvest that into nicer neighborhoods. It's easier to get good deals in lesser quality neighborhoods. It's very rare that you're going to find a seller that's motivated. And again, there's 2 types of motivation: motivated for convenience and speed in an A-class neighborhood, because typically the investors that own properties in A-class neighborhoods are sophisticated, and they're rarely motivated by, again, speed and convenience. They may be motivated by high capital, but that just means that they're going to be wise and they're going to hire an agent or they're going to do the repairs themselves. Not always, but the vast majority of the time.
So talk to me a little bit about how you find these sellers that are motivated by speed and convenience, and that only care about speed and convenience, as opposed to the people that want the most money for their house.
Yeah, absolutely. So go be in the places that they are looking. So we just talked about this on my coaching call, actually. So, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's dealing with distress, right? So you have 2 types of distress typically. There's lots of different types, actually. There's probably 10 different types. But at the end of the day, when it comes to real estate, it's either the person is distressed or the property is distressed. And it can even be both. Now, with the person being distressed, you have physical distress, emotional distress. You got all these different types of distress. But at the end of the day, you narrow it into 2 categories. Either the person has some sort of distress going on, or the property has some sort of distress going on. All right. So if somebody's dealing with a personal distress, it's very simple and straightforward: death, divorce, disease, job relocation, downsizing, upsizing, whatever, right? It's something going on within them, right? The property being distressed, on the other hand, is very straightforward as well. It needs a new roof, falling down. It needs updates. It hasn't been renovated in 10 or 15 years. So when you're dealing with properties that need distress, one of the best ways to find those is to go pull lists of code violations, water shutoffs, or just get in the car and drive for dollars. And we do a lot of driving for dollars in our business here locally in St. Louis. We bought over 100 houses driving for dollars, probably closer to 200 houses driving for dollars. We essentially locate and identify properties that need work from the outside. From there, we call them, we text them, we email them, we DM them on social media, we send mail to their house, or we might even get out of the car and go knock on the door, leave a sticky note behind, or a door hanger. All right. If we're dealing with somebody that is dealing with the personal side of distress, death, divorce, disease, job relocation, we are going to market to those people in some of the same methods. We're going to send mail. We're going to pull lists of what we can. You can't pull list of disease, but you can pull list of death. That's probate or pre-probate. You can pull lists of divorce, right? So on and so forth. So there's certain lists that you can pull to help identify these distresses. There's certain lists you can't. The low-hanging fruit list from my experience and what I teach and coach all my students is typically start with vacant and absentee. Why? Because they're liabilities. Right? If they're vacant homes or they're absentee-owned homes, aka they're rental properties or second and third homes, they can become distressed much easier, and they may not even know the condition of that property if they haven't been there in a couple months. So of all the properties I bought, close to 1,000, I'd say between 65 and 75%, call it 70%, qualify as either being vacant or absentee owned. So that's the best place to start. How do you market to them? How do you get in front of them? Simple, guys. Call them, text them, email them, DM them, send them mail. Or, if somebody is distressed and they need to sell, what do they typically do? Put yourself in the shoes of somebody that owns a home that needs to sell it in a hurry. Well, if you haven't gotten any calls or text or DMs or mail, what do? Well, it's 2023, almost 2024. We all have cell phones and computers and tablets. We go to the internet and we type in "sell my house fast." So build a website and start paying Google or YouTube or Facebook or whatever platform they're searching on to deliver your ad or your website when those terms are searched. So we do it all. We do direct mail, we do door knocking, we do cold calling and texting, DMing, we do pay-per-click marketing. I've even done some television and some radio over the years, on and off. I'm getting ready to potentially launch myself a local television show on PBS to be kind of a resource for seniors. Lots of networking. Marketing at the end of the day, I've been talking about marketing for the last 3 minutes if you haven't noticed. But marketing at the end of the day is nothing more than getting people on the phone. That's it. It's a fancy word for getting people on the phone. If you want to go get a billboard or a radio ad to get people to call you, that's a method of marketing. If you want to send direct mail so they call you, that's a method of marketing. If you want to build a website and do SEO optimization or SEM, search engine marketing, aka PPC, pay-per-click marketing, that's a form of marketing. But all of these marketing forms, all these roads, they end with people on the phone with you. Either you call them or they call you. Period. It's that simple. So if you're new in this business, I would imagine you probably have a lot of people in this group that are here to learn. They're here to get their first deal. They're here to take in information. If you're not talking to sellers, you will never do a deal. I mean, this is one of the biggest problems I have with students that come to me and they say, "Dave, I've been in the real estate game full time for 6 months." And I say, "Great. How many offers have you made?" They stumble backwards. Well, you're not in the real estate game. The real estate game is talking to sellers, people that own properties, running appointments and meeting them, shaking their hand, building rapport, and then making an offer to them. If you don't run appointments, you're never going to have the opportunity to make the offer. If you don't get people on the phone that own property, you're never going to have the opportunity to run the appointment. We can go A to Z or Z to A in terms of the sequence. It doesn't matter, right? But you got to basically start with some sort of marketing. That gets you the opportunity to make friends with people, get to know them, get out there and run appointments. Once you do that, again, double down on trying to make a friend with them, build rapport with them, right? After you do that, understand their motivation. If their motivation is to get the most for the property, you might want to cut your losses and get out of there. Still make an offer to them, but don't keep wasting a bunch of time because we're not interested in paying retail for properties. This ain't a charity, folks. Right? We're trying to help people. Don't get me wrong. That's what charities do, but we're not necessarily looking to give away our time and money for free. We have to be buying at deep discounts if we want to make a profit in this business. If you want to get 12 or 13 million dollars worth of real estate like I have, you're not buying it retail. You're buying it at a 20 to 50% discount every single time. Right? And that's it. So, a good way to sum it up is the more offers you make, the more success you will have. It's literally correlated 1-to-1. You make 0 offers, you will have 0 success. You make 1,000 offers, you're going to have 1,000 points towards you having success. It's that simple. So if you're struggling, you feel like you're spinning your tires, it's probably because you're reading books, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches and joining clubs and programs, which aren't bad things, but that's your focus, right? You're over educating. You're getting all this education and then you're getting analysis paralysis because you don't know what to do. I'm here to tell you today, stop trying to learn the next thing. I'm not saying don't learn things. I'm just saying stop trying to keep learning the next thing. That ain't going to help you. What you need to do is you need to get on the phone with people, start talking to them, go run appointments, and then start making offers. That's what successful real estate investors do. I see TTP in the chat. Brent Daniels is one of my good buddies, right?
I love Brent.
Brent's awesome, right? So you got to get out and talk to people. That's what TTP stands for.
Yep.
Brent runs an awesome organization. He teaches people how to cold call and cold text and just get out and talk to people, really. So it's, take my hat off to Brent. He's a good friend of mine. Great coach, awesome teacher, right? And I do the same thing. I teach people the same stuff he does. You got to get out there and you got to talk to people. You got to make friends with sellers, figure out their motivation, and then make offers to them. And guess what? 9 out of 10, maybe even 49 out of 50 in some cases, are going to tell you, no, that offer's too low. So then you got to follow up with them. And you got to keep following up with them. And there's really only 3 reasons, John, that we stop following up with people. Number 1, they tell us to quit. Take me off your list. Stop calling me. Leave me alone. Okay. Understood. Have integrity, people. Stop calling them. Number 2, they sell it to somebody else. They don't own it anymore. Why would you keep calling them? Number 3, they sell it to me or you. They sell it to us. You bought it. Why would you keep calling them? The only reason that you'd keep calling them is if they had other houses that they want to sell. Then sure, call them. Buy the other houses. But if it's not one of those 3 reasons, they tell you to quit, they sell it to somebody else, or they sell it to us or you, then you got to keep calling them. You got to keep following up. The follow-up can look like many forms: calling them, texting them, emailing them, sending them Christmas cards. I don't even like to teach my students the phrase follow-up. Actually, I know I just said it like 15 times. Instead, I like to teach people to check in. Think about the mindset here, the mentality. If I'm trying to sell you something, John, and now when I'm buying houses, I'm not selling anything. I'm buying things. But just for simplicity, for sake of educational purposes here today, if I'm trying to sell you something, and you're not really interested in buying it, and I call you and I say, hey, John, I'm calling you about this thing I'm trying to sell you. I'm following up. What's the first thing you think? Oh, geez, this guy again. But what if you change the narrative, right? And you say, hey, John, I was thinking about you this morning, man. I'm calling to check in to see how you're doing. How are things? It changes the way that you feel a little bit, doesn't it? You're not all of a sudden like, oh, geez, this guy again. So whenever we're dealing with sellers, it's the same thing. I'm not ever typically saying, hey, hey John, I'm calling to follow up with you about that property over on 123 Main Street. Instead, it's, hey John, I'm looking at my notes in my CRM. Hey John, I'm calling to check in with you, man. I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. I was thinking about you this morning. I just wanted to see how things are going, man. How are you? And then after we start talking a little bit, then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna say, hey, by the way, I'm still interested in that property on Main Street. But notice I didn't ever say I'm following up with anybody or anything. So a good piece of advice is remove follow-up from your vocabulary. You can talk about follow-up internally with your team, but don't say the words follow-up to a seller. Say, I'm checking in. I'm calling to check in with you. So that's a little gold nugget for you all today.
I love that. I'm definitely gonna make sure our team's implementing that in all of our calls. Um, just to be more personable, really try to connect with
Be more
people.
personable. Let me give you another pro tip. When you're cold calling, I'm sure a lot of you all here are cold calling. Never, ever, 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 ever ask them how they're doing in the first couple sentences. So let's do another example. Hey, John, this is Dave with ABC Company. How are you doing today? What's your first impression of that call?
What's he want?
What's he want? Why is he calling me? How'd he get my number? I'm not saying you don't want to ask people how they're doing. Don't do it in the first one or two or three or even five sentences, right? Let them talk to you and then build a little rapport and then say, oh, by the way, how are you doing today? Instead, your opening line on a cold call should be like this. Hey, John, this is David with House Sold Easy. I'm calling today about Main Street, that property you own over there. Are you still the owner of that? And I'm going to basically try to get a yes or no answer out of them in the very first question I ask. Not, how are you doing today? When you ask them how they're doing today, they're probably not doing very good. They're probably annoyed. They're probably pissed off. They're probably wondering who you are, why you got their number, why you're calling them. It's going to lead to hangups and people getting mad at you. But when you ask them that first question that basically gives them the option of saying yes or no, then it's simple, it's easy. So then they say, yeah, I own that one. You say, oh, great, man. I own a few in the neighborhood. I think it's an awesome neighborhood. Do you have any interest in selling that one? They may say yes, they may say no. Then you can say, oh, great. Well, hey, thanks for taking my call, by the way. I'm Dave. I'm over in Brentwood. I'm just down the street from you. How you doing today? It's much more personable. It's going to get you light years ahead of your competition. If your cold callers are saying, hey, this is Dave with House Sold Easy. I'm calling John. I'm trying to reach John. Is this John? Hey, John, how are you today? Click every single time. Remove the how are you doing from your first couple of sentences in your cold calls. Another pro tip.
I love that. I'm going to implement that immediately because that's something that I see myself doing.
It's
And
hard not to do it. And if you're not taught like I just taught you, that's the natural tendency.
yeah,
You want to get them to engage. So that's the simple question to ask. How are you doing today? They don't care. You certainly don't care. I don't give a shit. When I'm calling a seller, I don't really care how they're doing. I care if they own the house and if they want to sell it to me. Great. Then I'm going to care more. But in the meantime, I don't really care. It's wasting time and it just pisses them off.
heard
Remove it.
loud and clear. I see that there are people eager to get up on the stage and ask some questions. You've already dropped some insane sauce on how you should be talking to sellers. Now, if you could tell us how you actually find the sellers to talk to, what softwares are you using? Do you pull your lists with PropStream? How are you getting a hold of your data?
Yeah, data. I use Deal Machine, Batch Leads, and PropStream. I'm also a local agent here in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live, so we can sometimes get data out of the MLS. My go-to is Batch Leads. I think it's the cleanest, the simplest. PropStream's second place, I'd say. It's good. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. Deal Machine just launched yesterday free skip tracing. So any lead that you have in Deal Machine, you can get their phone numbers and emails for free. So paying for skip tracing is done. Quit doing that,
Whoa.
folks. You can get free data out of Deal Machine as of yesterday. They're changing the industry. So if you're paying any skip tracing provider for skip tracing at this point, unless you want to append a list, then you need to pay for it. But if you're doing one-off leads, Deal Machine can really not even one-offs. I think you can import your leads into Deal Machine and then get all the numbers appended that way too. Don't quote me on that. They just launched it last night at like 9 p.m.
Whoa.
But I'm an affiliate for them, so they've been kind of keeping me in the loop. But yeah, back to your. I'm reading some of the comments here. Uh, yeah, I mean, skip tracing. The more skip tracing is obviously needed, but nowadays too, and this may or may not work outside of the United States. I don't know, but in the U.S., TruePeopleSearch.com is also like 80% accurate, maybe even 85% accurate at this point. And that's free. It's one-offs. It's not a batch type formula. Um, but you can get super high quality data on TruePeopleSearch.com. It's free. Lander says I use it. It's great. I've been using that for years. 4 or 5 years ago, it'd be about 60% accurate. Today, it's probably closer to 90% accurate. It's really, really accurate. Um, but yeah, for property data, who owns it, how long they've owned it, what their mortgage is. Batch and PropStream are great resources for that for sure. Deal Machine too. All three of those.
That's awesome. So batch prop stream and deal machine. You're then driving for dollars. You're going around in your local area, finding these distressed properties. You're creating your own list. You're not pulling it
Yeah, we're doing
necessarily.
both. We're doing both. I mean, earlier I said my bread and butter is vacant and absentee, right? For single family particularly, right? You're not going to typically find, big commercial units. You could, I guess, well, more so big multifamilies that are going to be vacant. They're mostly all absentee owned. So that's true actually, but vacants are big with single families, absentee as well. We pull lists of divorce, probate, pre-probate, pre-foreclosure, not so much foreclosure because the timing is limited. Code violations, and then we drive for dollars to find the physically distressed properties. We can pull this to water shutoffs, code violations. I think I mentioned. Um, we do seniors, high equity, people that have owned their home for 15 or 20 years. I mean, there's really no bad list if you think about it. Some lists are going to yield more results than others. However, some of the lists that are going to yield more results than others are also going to be highly marketed too. So, for example, your absentee and your vacant list, those are the low hanging fruit, but you're going to have more people marketing and mailing and calling people on those lists than you are on a more niche list, like a driving for dollars list or code violation list or even a divorce list. A lot of people are scared to pull and market to a divorce list or a probate list. Doesn't mean you have to call them, send them mail. So the more niche list you have, the less competition you're going to face in the marketplace. The list that you can maybe go pull for free from some of the free resources. I think I saw Jerry Norton's name up there before. I think
Oh
he's
yeah.
got PropWire.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Jerry. By all means, I'm not
Great
saying
guy.
nothing negative. I'm a big fan of Jerry. By all means, but he gives away, and I believe it's called PropWire. Don't quote me on that. A free resource to go pull lists. Well, guys, how many people do you think are going to go pull those lists? Tons of people. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like that's not what I'm going to go do. Like if everybody's doing that, that's probably not what I want to do. I'm going to do something a little different. 20 minutes remaining, Kyle says. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. I maybe have a 2025, but yeah, I got to hit the road here at some point. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here. Government list, reverse driving for dollars or free lists. Lander says, yeah, and you can kind of pull those sometimes from the government in terms of like how they qualify or how they appraise properties. I know Ryan Dossie talks about that quite a bit, or has been recently. Um,
Looks like we definitely have some questions.
yeah,
Um, if there's anybody that'd like to raise their hand and come and join us up on the stage now, would be a good time. Please remain respectful with your question. Please ask a coherent question. Um, let's start taking some questions from people. I appreciate it, David.
yeah, man, happy to help.
100%.
I was a, I was learning at some point too, man. I'm still learning new things. I don't know it all by any means, but some of the best ways to really, cut the learning curve is talk to people that are doing lots of deals. You know,
Absolutely.
Armin,
Hey,
what's up?
hey,
How's
David
it
and John,
going?
how are you guys doing?
What up?
Doing awesome.
Hey, I started wholesaling probably like 8 months ago, and the first 3 months I was doing completely everything wrong. I didn't have anyone to teach me. I was doing like on-market deals, and obviously nothing worked out. And then I had an off-market deal on Facebook that I found a buyer for, and I'm still friends with that guy, and we're doing deals together. And I closed that deal. A month later, I started cold calling, and I got a lead from Vegas, and I locked it up pretty high, and I ended up closing it and made about like 6,000 from that.
Nice.
And now it's been a month or almost two, and I have not closed anything yet, but I have some leads. And I always thought like near November and December, like the market's kind of slowed down, so I feel like wholesaling kind of slows down. I have a lead. She has a land and she has a house. They're both right next to each other, and the price she's asking and she wants it for is pretty good. So, the land she wants for like 25,000. You can sell it for like 60,000. The new builds are going for like 300 to 400, and the house she wants 125, and it goes for like 240 plus. So I feel like that's really good numbers, and she's just giving the tenant uh the chance to get a loan and buy the property, but the tenants have missed couple of months of payments. So I reached out many times, like trying to tell her like if they can't pay you the rent, how would they pay you, like get a loan and pay in full? So then she's like, well, just call me next week, and it's been like a month like that. I have another lead. Her name is Catherine, and she's just waiting for kids. They're in college, and she's saying at the end of the year, the first of 2024, I'll decide this and that. So I feel like when it's near November and December, and the market kind of slows down, is that's if that's the reason my leads are not like working right now, because they're pretty good. It's just that they don't want to close right now. They want to close the first of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The market definitely slows down a little bit when the weather gets cold and the people are on vacation or holiday or dealing with family, but it doesn't halt. I mean, I don't know the exact amount of percent that the market slows down. At least here in the Midwest where I invest. But January has historically been our best month for the last 9 years, with maybe one or two out of 9 um, years. So people start to get really motivated after the holidays. They get their New Year's resolutions. We're still doing deals. I bought a house this morning, and I got a house under contract that I had on the MLS this morning. Both a buy and a sell, essentially. Didn't close on either one of them yet, but I am, you know, moving paperwork at this point. So there's still people out there. Um, one of the things that I noticed that you had mentioned was you had given me ARVs and you had given me asking prices, but you didn't give me any of the repair estimates. So, like, just pick one of those houses, for example. I want to use this as a really good example. I think it'll help you. You had said one of them goes for 250, right? Something like that.
Yeah, 250, about 980 square feet. We could do like $40 per square feet to renovate everything in the property. So
Okay.
we're
And
saying
how much are they asking for it?
125. She wants to sell the house and the land, so she wants 150. But I said I'll get separate contracts for each. Just for example, if I wholesale the land and nobody buys the house, like they could just get the land.
Yeah, I
So
love that. I love the
yeah.
option or the ability to separate those out. Um, so I was typing in the chat here. I want you guys to all look at the chat if you can for a second. So what I threw in the chat here is ARV property. This is a different example that I was looking at today. It's not your example. This is my example, but it's similar, right? ARV is 250. Repairs are 75,000. DR is the discount rate. Most people typically will say, "Oh, use the 70% rule," which is, ARV times zero point 0.7 minus repairs, right? You guys all familiar with that? The problem with 70% rule is that only works in C-class neighborhoods. It doesn't really work very well in D and lower or C plus and above. You have
What
to
is
get
that?
more. Well, just think about it. Are you going to be able to buy an office building with a 30% discount? fully occupied with no repairs needed? No, you're never going to be able to get that deal. So you have to have a less of a discount rate. So on a C plus neighborhood, maybe even B minus, you're going to need to come in at like 75%. In a B neighborhood, you might need to come in at 75 or 80%. In an A neighborhood, you might need to be at 80 or even 85%. The 70% rule only works in C class neighborhoods. Now, luckily for all of us, C class neighborhoods are the average. That typically makes up about 2/3 of the neighborhoods, but not every single neighborhood. All right. But look at my chat for just a second. I think it's got a really great example. ARV at 250, repairs are 75. It's a little bit more than what you had said at 40 bucks a foot on a 900 square foot property, but regardless, take a look at the example with a discount rate of about 75% or 0.75. Okay? We were coming up with that rate on that formula right there with an MAO of 112. That's about 45% of what Zillow, assuming Zillow said it were 250, the Zestimate, or the comps would tell me that property is worth. Now, great lesson for everybody. If I'm on that phone with the seller and they're telling me that the ARV or that the after repair value, some of the other recently sold properties in the area sold for 250, all right, they may or may not know the repairs, but let's say I learned that the repairs are about $75,000 and I want to make a 15% profit margin. That would be a 75% discount rate. 10% cost to sell, profit margin gets added to that. That's the discount rate. 75%, call it a C plus or a B minus neighborhood. This is the math I would use. My MAO on that deal will be 112 grand. Correct me if I'm wrong. Alexa, what's 75% of 250?
Is 187.5.
187.5 minus 75 is 112.5. I was off by 500 bucks. Let's just round down. Okay, so my MAO on that deal will be 112. But for everybody here that's cold calling or just answering leads and talking to people on the phone, that's what marketing is. So basically everybody qualifies. If you tell that person on the phone that you're going to be only be willing to pay them about 112 grand on a property that they think has a value of 250, even though it's not today's value, what percentage of the time do you think you're going to be able to get in the door? Pretty low, right? So what we want to do is we want to basically appease sellers. I'm not saying you need to lie to them. It's not what I'm saying. But you can word your offers, your verbal offers, a little bit more creatively. So what I might tell to a seller is, hey, assuming your property, let's say I don't know that it needs 75 grand. Let's say I think it maybe needs 10. Well, I could tell a seller, hey, I may be interested in buying your property somewhere around, 175, maybe as much as 200 if it doesn't need any work at all. When can I come see it? And rarely sellers are going to just disclose every little nick and cranny and issue and crack and tree that's fallen and unupdated items. It's pretty rare that they're going to just disclose all that to you. You're going to have to get out there in the field and learn that stuff, right? But if I go out and I offer 112 on the phone, they're not going to even invite me over to their home. They're going to say, yeah, that's a crazy low offer, Dave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in a little bit more aggressively. I might come in at 75 or 80% of the ARV without taking any of the repairs out at all. And say, with homes that don't need much work, like maybe just paint, this is kind of where I'm at. How does yours stack up to that? And people lie to you every single day. And they're going to say, oh, yeah, it doesn't need much. But you're in the ballpark with them. Their ballpark is your ballpark. The difference between experienced investors, people like me that do a lot of deals, and people that don't do a lot of deals, maybe just because they're new, is that they know how to justify the offer as not only being low, but being fair. It's the only difference between people that are doing lots and lots of deals and people that are not doing very many. It's a big difference, though. Okay? So what I'll do is, and at the end of the day, Armin, and I'm just going to use you as an example here. I'm not saying that you're inexperienced. You're new, right? No big deal. I'm happy you're here. Welcome. Right? But your offer is going to sound really, really low. And it might even sound unfair. Guess what? My offer, it's going to be the same number because we're using the same equation. But as an experienced investor, I'm going to justify that offer as not only being low, because that's what it is. It's roughly 45% of the ARV. But I'm going to justify that offer as being a fair offer. How do I do that? Well, number one, I make a friend with the seller. I get in the door. All right. Number two, I'm going to include them in the repair process. So if I go out there and I say, yeah, this property is going to need 75 grand worth of work, they're going to maybe say, well, I think it needs 30. I don't like you, Dave. Get out. But if I include them in the process and we walk around together and we say, all right, it needs a roof. You know, I just did a roof like this last week and it was $8,700. All right, so let's write that down. All right. Oh, it needs windows. Windows are going to be about 7,000. We need 47 of them or whatever that number is. It needs flooring. It needs paint. Make a list of all the things that it needs. Include them in. I often hand my clipboard, if I have one with me, to them. And I say, do you mind helping me? I'll do all the talking. You just do the writing. And they're writing this all down. And then at the end, I say, hey, let's add all that up. Read them off to me. I'll put them in my calculator. And then I show them a number. And then they tell me what the repairs are. I don't tell them what the repairs are. They tell me. We do it together. Step one, make a friend. Step two, include them in the repair process. Step three, justify your offer as being fair by explaining to them why your offer is what it is, and really more importantly than that, how you got there. So what I do is I then sit down with the seller and I say, okay, let's look at the comps. We're going to pull up our phone, pull up our laptop. We're going to open it up and we're going to start going through the comps. All right. And let's say that we find some comps that are 250 and we say, oh yeah, this one's right down the street, it's 250,000. But then I'm going to start pointing out everything nice about it. I'm going to say it's got granite countertops. It's got a brand new roof, new windows, new flooring. Oh, look at the light fixtures. That chandelier is gorgeous. Oh, look at the bathroom. That tile on the wall is awesome. Oh, look at the detail work in the kitchen. Oh, they got a 48-inch range in there. That's cool. But we can both agree that your house can look like this, right? Awesome. But it don't look like this today. There's that, and then there's this. A big difference, right? We're not trying to be rude or point anything out negatively. We're trying to get them out of the stratosphere and bring them down to reality. All right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say, let me explain to you. I got about 8 or 10 minutes left here, guys. I'm going to say, hey, let me explain to you how we make offers. Have you had anybody else come through your house yet and make you offers? And oftentimes they're going to say, yeah, you're the third or fourth person. Awesome. Did any of those other people explain to you why they also offered you about 110 or 100,000 for this property? And they're going to say, no, they just told me that the repairs were more than I think they were, and they made me an insulting offer. And I say, okay, well, do you mind if I educate you on why or how we make offers? And I've never been told no unless they're in a hurry. It's always, yeah, I'd love to know, Dave. Explain that to me. And I say, okay, no problem. We're going to start with the 250 in mind, the one that had all that really nice detail work and the countertops and the chandeliers and all that stuff. And we both agree that yours could look like that, but don't look like that today. And we also agree, because we walked the house already, and I included them in the process, that in order to get this house to look like that house, we're going to need about $75,000 worth of repairs. We both agree on that, right? Okay, so I'm including them in the process, and I'm explaining to them why the offer is going to be what it is. Guess what? It's going to be low. But just because it's low doesn't mean it has to be unfair. How do you make it not unfair? You show transparency. You explain to them how you get there. So then I'm going to write down the formula. Here's how we determine what we offer. We start with the after repair value, or the average of the comps. That's 250 in this case. Next, I need to take out the cost to sell as well as my expected profit margin. I'm not a charity. I don't need to buy this house. And typically when I'm fixing and flipping houses or buying rentals, I shoot to make a 15 or 20% profit. Because we're in a nicer neighborhood, I'd only need to make a 15% profit here, aka a discount rate of 0.75. 10% cost to sell, 15% profit. 10 and 15 is 25, multiplied by 0.75. That's our 70% rule, but I don't use 70%. I use discount rates because it's a sliding scale, folks. You got to be able to slide that scale a little bit. If you've never been taught that, that's a really, really big gold nugget for you today. Okay, then I'm going to then subtract out the repairs. All right, how do I get this to look like that? Well, I start with that number. I take out the cost to sell and expected profit. Then I take out the cost to get it there. That leads me with about 112. It was 112.5 actually. So in order for me as the investor to even have interest in working with you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I'm going to need to pay 112. I'm going to need to then put 75 in it. I'm going to need to have a 10% buffer that's going to come off when I go to sell it and pay the agent and pay the seller concessions and the closing costs and the holding costs and the utilities and the insurance while I'm fixing it up. And this is all going to basically put me in a situation where I will hopefully make a 15% profit margin. Do you completely understand now why the offer is 115? Or, sorry, 112. And they do. They say, yeah, Dave, no one's ever explained to me why it is. So is my offer lower or higher than yours? No, it's the same number. But does my offer seem unfair after I justify and explain and show them that level of transparency that most people don't? Does it seem a little less unfair, even if it's just a little bit? Yeah, it does, massively. So your guys' goal, and this is what I teach all my students, number one, it should be making friends with people. Get in the door. I'm not saying you need to lie to them, but you can be a little aggressive on the initial offer because if you phrase it properly, I'm typically paying a little more for properties that don't need much work. They're not going to tell you all the work that it needs. Get in the door. That's okay. If you offer 112 out the gate, you're never getting in the door. You never even can get to step 2 or step 3. You're killing yourself at step 1 every time. You're killing your business is really what I mean, right? Be a little aggressive on the phone. Get in the door. Then when you're in the door, include them in the repair process and be transparent and teach them how you make offers. Teach them how everybody else that came in before you made these offers. What you're going to do is you're going to strengthen your relationship with them. You're going to build that rapport, that know, like, and you're really going to hammer home trust because you're explaining to them and educating them on where you need to be and why you're there, right? And then at the end of the day, they're going to look at that offer and they're going to say, Dave, that's the same offer that everybody else made me, and I told everybody else no, but I'm going to tell you yes because it makes sense to me now. When can you close? Say, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. Let's do it. That's how you go buy 1,000 houses. But if you don't explain to them why your offer is what it is, you don't justify that offer as being fair, even though it's low, and you don't include them in the process, you're like every other idiot investor out there. Pardon my language. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying, generally speaking, that you're the guy coming in making crazy low offers, insulting them. Crazy low offers don't have to be insulting. They can be fair. It's your job, though, folks, to explain to them why they also need to be, included as fair. Does that make sense?
Complete sense.
Awesome. That's a good gold nugget. I got 5 more minutes, guys, and I got to run. But that's basically what I work on with my students that come to me. Is I teach them different tools and strategies to make a friend, different tools and different strategies to help include the seller in this process, and tons of tools and strategies on how to justify that offer as being a fair offer, or at a minimum not unfair, right? And the fact that we can't pay 180 in our example because that would just be only paint. But we're here, we see it needs all this extra stuff. And check this out. This is something I left out, but I want to add it now. Whenever I get to the table with them and I say, I know I told you 180 on the phone, but it's not going to really be anywhere near that number due to the fact that it needs more repairs. And I'd love to educate you on, how I make my offers and why. The good news is I still want to work with you. So notice that I came in at 180 to get in the door. And then I tell them I can't pay them 180, but I want to teach them why. And then I tell them there's good news. I never mention bad news ever once. I say the good news is I still want to work with you, even though that this house needs a whole lot more repairs than I thought it did originally, and I still want to buy this home from you. Now, let's dive in and let me explain how we make offers and why. So I never mention bad news. I never tell them that I'm upset that there's all these repairs. I use that as good news that I'm here, glad I'm here, and that I still want to work with you. So now let's dive in and let me explain why we make offers the way we do and how, and then let me actually make you an offer. And at the end of the day, my offer might even be lower than the last guy that came in. But because I'm there and I'm building that know, that like, that trust, that rapport, and I'm explaining to them and I'm being transparent, they may even take my offer even if it's 5 or 10 grand less than the last guy because I gave them the time of day and not just came in and shoved a low offer down their throat. I gave them my time to explain to them why and how and all of these things. And it's not just about me and my offer, it's about how all of us investors typically make offers. So if you want to go get 3 or 4 more quotes behind me, by all means go do that. Most investors won't say that. They want to win the deal today. I'm not scared of my competition. I tell sellers straight up, if you want to go get 5 more quotes, they're all going to typically be right at this number. And I guarantee you none of them are going to explain to you how they got to this number. And then usually they're like, Dave, where do I sign? That level of transparency and that building of the trust and that explaining and justifying of these whys and hows will win you dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of deals, folks. It's how I've been able to buy 1,000 houses right there. That's the secret.
We appreciate it, David.
I got time for one more quick question, guys, and then I got to run. Hopefully you'll learn a thing or two today.
I
Tim.
know I definitely did. All right.
How do
Hey,
you know the discount rate is? Go ahead. Hi,
I
Carmelo. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm well. What you
I
got?
have a quick question. So I have an LLC, but I'm trying to get started wholesaling. But I've been trying to figure out how do I introduce myself to sellers without saying like I'm with a company or I work with it. Like I work with certain companies. Like how do I like make myself sound
You're
different?
overthinking it. You're overthinking it. I'm Carmela, and I'm looking to buy my first investment property. You own a house or a property? I'd love to come take a look at it and make you an offer on it. You don't need to tell them that you're new. You don't need to. I mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
I always choose being overly transparent than under transparent, right? But tell them that you don't have to necessarily mention a business or a company or an LLC or any of that. When I'm on the phone with somebody, I don't even tell them my business half the time. Most of the time, I just say, "Hey, I'm Dave. I'm looking to buy some houses."
Wow,
That's all
that
you got to
sounds
do. Don't overthink it. You got this.
okay. Yeah, I like your advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, how do I exit out of here?
John will help you with that. There you go.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Great question. I got one more. That was a quick one.
Thank you,
Don't
Carmelo.
overthink it, guys. Thank you, Carmel. That was an excellent question. Most people, they overthink a lot of this stuff. And I'll tell you right now, the overthinking leads to analysis paralysis. The analysis paralysis leads to inaction. And inaction leads to frustration, right? You got to just jump in. Carmela, excellent question. Don't overthink it, though. Just tell them your name, tell them you're looking to buy some houses, and ask them if they're interested in selling it, what price, when can you come see it. That's it. That's all they need to know. That's all you need to tell them. All right, what do we got? Trident Jake, REI. What's up, bro?
How you doing, man? I love your energy. I love your advice. Doing a few deals. The main objection that I get is, oh man, EMD, why is it $10? And my overturn to that objection is like, hey man, I'm going to be honest with you. If I do, traditionally 1%, which is what agents do, and I'm putting 3 and 5,000 EMD, and I'm sending out 5 contracts a week, that's a lot of money tied up in escrow that I can't use. And sometimes they're like, well, I don't care.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, as far as the low EMD objection, if I assume you've had it.
I
What do
get
you
it all
use?
the time. I get it
What do
all
you
the time.
use?
So I got 2 pieces of advice for you. Number 1, don't go in at 10, go in at 100. It'll cut your objections in half. Okay?
Even at 100, I'm still getting that. But absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Either way. So just don't, I never go with 10. I did it for the first year or 2, and now I'm like, you know what? It's an insult to people almost. So 100, 500, you don't got to go in at 1%. You're doing $300 to $500,000 average homes. That's 3 to 5 grand. You're right. If you come in at, 100 or 500, even at 500, you're going to cut that in half, if not more. People are still going to complain, but you're going to limit a lot of it. So part 2 is really more important than part 1. Part 1 just come up a little bit on that money. You ain't got to go to 1%, but just be a little bit better on it. Part 2 is my favorite part. It's another awesome gold tip here, guys. You can even go in at 1% on the earnest money if you want. But I always make it in my contracts that the earnest money isn't due until the end of the inspection period. So if somebody says, hey, I got this house, it's 250 grand, I want to see $5,000 in earnest money, I say, hey, no problem. I'm going to need 10 business days of inspections, And in my contract, I don't tell them this, but in my contract, it says the earnest money is due before the end of the inspection period. So what that means is that if I do 10 business days, another pro tip is always ask for business days in your inspection period. 10 days is 10 days, folks. 10 business days is how many days? It's 14 days. It's 40% more time by adding one word in there. 10 days is 10 days. 10 business days is 14 days. In fact, I had a student last week that asked for 10 business days and he got 21 because of holidays and Thanksgiving and Veterans Day and Black Friday and all these days. It ended up being 3 weeks for 10 business days. It doesn't always happen that way. Usually you can get, well, maybe not 21, it was like 18. But usually you can get 14 days minimum because of the weekends when you use business days. Also add the earnest money being due at the end of your inspection period. The beautiful thing about this is if you can't find a buyer, assuming you're wholesaling, you never even had to put the earnest money up to begin with. If the inspection period elapses and you don't even have any earnest money up, that contract was never even valid to begin with. The seller has zero repercussions to come back to you and do anything. They can complain.
Even if they open title?
Yeah, you can open title, they can open title. What does opening title mean? It just means sending a contract to a title company and depositing earnest money. But the earnest money doesn't necessarily need to be due day 1 or 2 or 3. You can write into the contract that your earnest money will be deposited before the end of your inspection period. That's it. Keep it vague. Before the end. If I got 10 business days, that means I got 14 days to get my earnest money to the title company. If I can't find a buyer in 14 days, I'm not even going to deliver my earnest money. I'll do a deal where I'll buy the house for 50 grand and put 20,000 in earnest money up if I have to, because I'm not taking any money to the title company unless I got it sold already. It's irrelevant. Does that make sense?
Well, they would have to cure you, right? And they probably don't know how to cure you.
What do you mean by cure you?
Well, like, let's say you're like, oh, I'm going to do, the seller's like, I want 10,000 to BMD. Let's just say it's outrageous. And you're like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll throw it on the contract, knowing that it's not due until at the end of the inspection period.
Sure.
They would have to cure you as far as, you have 10 days to correct that, right? Isn't that the legal arbitrage, or am I not understanding that right?
No, well, I mean, you're gonna if you do need the $5,000 or $10,000 in earnest money and you get it sold, then you force your end buyer to put that money up, and you would need that money to be put up before the end of your inspection period. So it's in our best interest, the investor's best interest, to make that inspection period as long as possible. If you can get 20 business days, you got yourself a month.
But wouldn't a high EMD, quote unquote, kill the deal as far as from an investing standpoint?
Not if your end buyer wants the deal. I mean, the lower the EMD, the better for us, the investor, the wholesaler, and or the cash buyer. So don't get aggressive. My example of 20,000 is if, I had a cash buyer that was paying cash. They don't give a shit. They'll pay the whole thing up front. They don't care, right? But if you're going to be assigning it and they're using hard money or they're using private money or they're using a bank loan or something like that, they're not going to want to do it either. So don't get aggressive. Don't go over 1% if you don't have to. I typically come in at 100 or 500. If the property's worth less than 50 grand, it's 100. If it's over 50 grand, it's 500. That's typically my EMD. If they want to push back and it's not crazy or unreasonable and it's less than 1% or at 1%, I will appease them. But I never deposit earnest money until I have it sold or I know I'm going to buy it with my financing lined up, period. My earnest money is always due before the end of my inspection, and I typically shoot for no, screw that. Don't switch. Sorry, guys. And my inspection periods are a minimum of 10 business days. Minimum. I usually ask for 15 business days. 15 business days is 2, 4, 6, is 21 days. That's almost a month, guys. 21 days. Come on, that's 3 weeks. Your earnest money does not have to be due within 3 days. This is not on market brokerage type transactions. This is direct to seller.
There you
Great
go.
question. Don't overthink it, man. Yeah, just tell them straight up. I'm not going to put down earnest money and lose my earnest money if I discover that the sewer lateral is cracked and you want to be an inconsiderate a-hole and not sign my mutual release. So I'm not even going to put myself in that situation. I will be willing to buy your property for $500,000 with $3,000 earnest money, but I'm not putting up my earnest money until I complete my due diligence period. And I brought into my contract that it's not due until the end or before the end of my inspection period. But notice that it's not highlighted on a particular day or time. It's just before the end of the inspection period. So in theory, I could go at 4:59, the last business day of that inspection period, make my deposit, and we move forward. But if I decide at any point in time I can't find a buyer, there's more repairs, I can't pay that much, I got my comps wrong, anything that I can't pay that number, I just don't deposit my earnest money and the deal's done. It's dead.
So, and I
There's no
guess if the seller wants the money up front, not in earnest money deposit, I had a deal similar to this situation. You could essentially do like, okay, I'll give you the money before close of escrow, but I'll do it as a promissory note. So if he backs out, he gets a lien on the house.
I've never given a seller money up front. I'm not looking for people
Okay.
that want to sell. I'm looking for people that need to sell. I think I
Got
mentioned
it.
that earlier, right? So if they want to sell and they got all these requests, go find somebody else, dude. I don't need to buy your house. I'll buy anywhere from 50 to 100 houses a year. I don't need to buy yours. Yeah. So, if people are getting all up in your shit and they're not necessarily motivated sellers. There's two types of motivation. There's people that want convenience and speed. There's people that want money. It sounds to me like you're talking to a lot of people that want the highest money. Not necessarily doesn't necessarily make for a bad deal, or does not necessarily make for a property that can't be a deal. I just focus on people that need to sell because then I have all the power. I have all the negotiation, I'm in control basically. So I would say try to shift your resources more towards direct to seller and people that truly need the convenience that you and I can offer as real estate investors and cash buyers. And if they're trying to get nitpicky over $1,000 earnest money when it's due, find someone else. That's my stance on it at this point, at least. So yeah.
100%.
Cool.
100%.
John, thanks for having me, money. Man, I got to hit the road.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And yeah, let's do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, David. You take care and drive safe.
See you guys. Thank you.
Take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please consider inviting somebody who would benefit from being in proximity with us. Send them the link, reirev.com. Tell them to go check us out. This is the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. We prove it time and time again. We've got all of the heavy hitters in the industry here. And man, I'm beyond grateful to be in proximity with all of you. Kyle, huge shout out to you, Mr. Kyle E. Banks, for coordinating this event and getting Mr. Dodge on. We greatly appreciate you and your contributions to the community, brother. And until next time, love you. Appreciate you. Bye.